Self-Publishing Podcast, episode number 159.
This episode of the Self-Publishing Podcast is brought to you by 99 Designs, the online marketplace that helps you get outstanding book cover design today at an affordable price. Start your custom design today at 99designs.com/SPP and enjoy a free Power Pack upgrade valued at $99.
Welcome to the Self-Publishing Podcast, where if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. And now, here are your hosts, three guys who smell like teen spirit, Johnny, Sean, and Dave.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Self-Publishing Podcast, the podcast that follows three full-time authors as we attempt to change the face of indie publishing. Join us and our trailblazing guests as we shove aside boundaries, freely experiment, and occasionally screw up. I'm Johnny B. Truant, and my co-hosts are Sean Platt and David Wright. Dave ad-libbing a little on the ad-lib today. He added an extra today. I like the timeliness of that. He said, just start your custom... No, it wasn't start your custom design today. It was something like...
I don't know what it was. Here's the deal, though. When I was getting for the show, I'm looping through the ad read in my head, like, wow, I have this memorized. I mean, I should by now, but I have it memorized. I'm kind of surprised because, you know, my memory isn't that great for like just memorizing things. So I was like, okay, what I'm going to do on today's show, I'm going to have the ad read up in front of me, but I'm going to try and just recite it from memory. And like halfway in between, I faltered, and I was like, oh, fuck it.
You know, is this a good point? Is this a good jumping off point to talk about how we're going to tighten up the SPP and talk about relevant things?
We could. Hey Dave, next time you're trying to sleep at night and you know it's evading you, you should just try repeating that reel in your head. I bet that works. That's like counting sheep.
It is brought to you by 99 Designs, the online marketplace that helps you have outstanding dreams.
I'll just
read that.
Have you
ever dreamed about 99 Designs?
I don't remember my dreams. All I know, there's a lot of screaming.
Let's save this conversation for the awkward middle.
And I wake up in another location.
Yeah, so speaking of writers' habits, because that's how I make this sound relevant, kudos to Dave for, I believe, staying on a day schedule for like, what, 3 weeks or something.
Is that right?
I think this is a fourth week. It's like a month.
Oh, that's amazing. Have you ever done that for 30 days?
Well, not since I've had a day job. So no, I haven't. It's been a long time.
All right. Well,
I woke up for my day job.
I think Amy deserves a round of applause for that.
Yeah. Oh wow, awesome. Yeah, that's fantastic, dude.
So
congratulations. Are you NutriBullying to
let's not get carried away with ourselves. One thing at a time.
I'm just saying, you're up during the day. You might be, you know, monitoring your morning intake a little bit with starting the day right with a NutriBullet.
No.
Who's up for a podcast called Monitoring Your Intake with David Wright?
You know what? I ended the night the other night with a NutriBullet, except instead of a NutriBullet, it was a chocolate shake. And
that's how I began my day, oddly enough.
Oh my God, it was the worst decision. Johnny and I were in Denver, and we were at this big table with just too many people. There was like 74 people eating.
And we were already in person overwhelmed. We were already just like, I can't be on anymore.
Yeah, so we decided to sneak away and go to a burger joint like a block away. And it was midnight, and I had to shake and then try to go straight to bed, and it was bad. And Johnny's like, are you sure about that? And I said, yeah. And then like half an hour later, he was laughing at me. Kindly, but like I told you so.
Just like Dave laughs at us.
That's not kindly.
It was
so
a Johnny
everybody,
was right moment.
Johnny was right. I've listened to Dave was right several times now. It's fantastic. So everybody, just so you know, we are trying to. We just had this big long discussion with Amy yesterday about trying to tighten up our systems, which as you watch us tighten up our systems, maybe you can tighten up your own systems. It's kind of like an exercise routine where you follow along. But one of the things we're trying to do is to improve the SPP experience and build community and just try to be, you know, more helpful to you guys. So as one of those things, today is... Well, let's see. So the actual day...
We're not starting with this episode.
No.
No,
the good stuff's coming much later.
No.
This is one of those out of time things too, right?
They always are. So next Thursday, it would be the 28th, Thursday, May 28th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to resume Ask Us Anything. So that will be our first Ask Us Anything in a while. That's again Thursday, May 28th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. And I assume Amy will send out a link to that to the repeaters list. So if you're not on that, I think it's just, is it still selfpublishingpodcast.com? You can join that list. I think so, right on the main page.
Yeah, the opt-in's right there.
So there you go. So there's that. And the other thing is, maybe this merits a little bit of discussion. Here. So if I'm being professional, maybe I should mention our guest before we go into that. This is going to be really, really cool. This is a debut.
Look forward to more of that, in the future, where we announce the guest early on.
Tightening up.
They've been pushing for a year and a half.
I was talking to Julia. I hope I get her name right. Her voicemail says it's Coblentz, which I thought it was different.
That's what I think it is.
Okay, I thought it would be a long O. But she's from Nookpress, and she told me that this would be her first podcast or anything like that. So this will be a debut, an exclusive, SPP exclusive. Boop, 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 boop. She's going to talk about publishing on Nook, something we've had.
And it'll be her last.
It'll be her last podcast. It'll be scarring.
If it goes anything like our last show with the tech issues.
Well, hopefully not.
Well, no, the second half of that show was actually awesome.
Oh, yeah.
The first half of that show was just the worst. That first half of the show was like the one when I first moved into my place a year and a half ago. Do you guys remember that? And you tried to have it, and then it just got aborted. It's the SPP I still haven't seen, but I heard it was pretty terrible.
Because you won't go back and listen to it. I have some like that where I just know it's going to be a train wreck.
I have 158 like that.
You can tell he just went to see how many we had too.
Yeah.
So the next episode 159, it's actually tomorrow at our usual time. If you're a live YouTube listener, will be Dan Wood from Drafted Digital.
Today is 159.
Today is 159.
Yes.
And then yes, so 160 will be Dan from Drafted Digital. 161 will be Julie Huss, J.A. Huss, who we've been talking about. I'm not sure who's after that, but I'll have to look. And what was the other thing? I guess that's about it. But in terms of tightening up, do you want to? We have a lot of stuff kind of brewing, and in true Sterling and Stone fashion, there's a lot that we aren't ready to discuss. But this we can, and it's sort of a toe in the water to the rest of the stuff that's brewing.
Yeah, this is all really, really cool, and it's really relevant to pretty much everybody listening to this because usually we have stuff that's semi-relevant to everybody and very relevant to some people, but this is about kind of revamping the show, and we've thought of several ways to really improve SPP and kind of just tighten it up and take it to the next level. What's Dave? What's up, Chuck?
He's laughing about the idea of improving SPP.
No. Amy just left a comment on YouTube saying, well, that Ask Us Anything time is news to me, so yeah, let's tighten up our systems.
Okay, well, but to be fair, we did. I know she needs to. I know she's going to give us credit for having given her a much more thorough debrief than we ever did. And yeah, we didn't hit that, but Amy is in the loop on a lot of the stuff in the company she works at now. So I figure that's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. We have ridiculously ambitious plans, which that's an actual exact quote from Amy. Ridiculously ambitious. And so to actually execute on a lot of these things that we're planning to do, we need much, much better systems. And we have so many ideas and we talk so fast and we don't really have a capture system for that, which is the problem. So we've got a lot of things compounded here. Johnny and I had our time in Austin, and then a couple weeks later we had our time in Denver. And in between that, we've had all these conversations. We've been on a lot of hangouts with a lot of different people. We're putting together, the Stone Table, and talking to Apple and Barnes and Noble and Kobo, and it's just all, and Podium Publishing. There's some big things.
And our live event next April.
Right. So there's a lot of stuff that has been in varying stages of development for several months, and it's all kind of coming together right now. And Amy, it's hard to be Amy because she's getting little snippets of it here and there, and she finally just raised her hand and said, "I need you guys to give me a download." And so we had a pretty long meeting, and just between me and Johnny, where we got a lot of the bullshit out of the way, and then we recorded another meeting that was for Amy where we just kind of gave her a heads up on everything. So now she could take that. She said she listened to it 3 times, and now she can take that and kind of really start to take it apart and build systems. But what this means for you is that we are getting tighter and we are getting better. And at the very top of this list is tightening up the SPP, so that we still have the bullshit conversation, because that's important. It is what this show is, but it's going to be 15 minutes instead of half an hour.
Well, unless it's a guestless show. We've been very guest heavy right now, but
It'll be
I think
hour of bullshit.
Right. Well, the ideal balance for me, I think Dave feels differently. I'm not sure where Sean is, but for me, I think about 50-50. I think
50-50 is perfect. Yeah.
So we've been very, very guest heavy, but it won't be 15 minutes on, like Dave said, it'll be an hour of bullshit. No, but it'll be topical.
I think we should have a guest every single week.
Yeah,
you should go on Simon's show then.
Yeah, I think
Joanna does it too. We're the only ones who do it wrong.
Yeah, I think every single week is too many. But I do think, but we have other ways that we're going to fix that also. So there's a lot of really great stuff there.
Guestless shows should be a half hour. Or they should have some sort of format, like lined up questions and stuff that we could actually answer, so we're useful. So we're not bullshitting for a full hour.
But that's exactly
not bullshitting. It's if we're talking about autoresponders for the whole. Well, first of all, you won't come because autoresponder, you're not interested in that bullshit. But if we talk about autoresponders, it's going to be topical for the whole show. Like some of our best shows, in my opinion, are the ones where we were hashing out strategy. Okay. It's this awkward period before a guest where we kind of can't get into anything fully. That's
our model.
We're going to tighten that up.
I disagree with Dave there, because I think that a show doesn't need to be half an hour or an hour. I think a show is like a book. It should be as long as it needs to be to tell the story. The problem with our shows aren't that they're too long, it's that they're too long with not enough value. And so what we need to do is tighten it up and make sure that if it's an hour and it's just us talking for an hour, we're actually, it's okay to stray off topic a little bit, but we also could do a much better job than we do. And, we're 3 mature enough guys to know that, look, this is our year of, optimization, right? And the podcast is one of those things that needs to be optimized. We just had our 3-year anniversary, and that's really special. We're really grateful that you've been listening for that long. And so it's time to do a little better. It's time to tighten up the show and make it a little more valuable than it is.
So go ahead.
Question: How many words have you written in Unicorn Western so far?
In Unicorn Western, 250,000.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to say that. Brevity's not your strong suit.
How many words of Clive Barker's epic works that you enjoy? How many words are there in those?
Every word that Clive says is pure magic.
I don't think word count is the determinant there. So look for it won't be a totally reworking of SPP, but we're going to kind of relaunch it. We're going to without getting too technical, we're going to move some of the old stuff to to a different feed. And when we relaunch it, I guess we're going to have new podcast artwork. We're going to have the shows produced a little. The version that goes on YouTube on iTunes will be a little different from the live version that's on YouTube. It'll be tightened up, new bumpers, that sort of thing, and we'll stay on topic a lot more. And we are going to tighten up the bullshitty pre-guest time for the shows with guests. So just something to keep an eye on. I did want to mention this. This thing from Denver, Sean, that we talked about, if I could. I don't know. We don't have a lot of time for a lot of something cools, but Sean and I just got back from Copy Bloggers event in Denver. It's called Authority Rainmaker, I believe is the official name of the event. And if you went to that, don't expect ours to be that nice. Copy Blogger pulls out all the stops. So.
Oh my God! Yeah, I mean,
it was kind of amazing.
Like $2,000 to go, but. Oh my God, it's so nice. Like the venues, it was in an opera house, and the food was really good, and it's classy. They're classy copy blogger folks.
So our favorite session was Sally Hogshead did a session that I thought was really, really cool, and she did this. You know how there was an episode where Sean talked about Enneagram, and that's like you can do that. You can do Myers-Briggs. There's these personality tests, but she kind of had her own that was. It kind of told you how to convey your worth to anybody who might encounter you, so readers or your writing brand in this case, or
You put a price tag on your head?
No,
Sort
you know
of.
what was interesting about it is when it gave you your results for what kind of a person you are, it was almost like marketing copy for you as a person. So it's copy that you could use on your LinkedIn profile, for example, or your author's page. This is the kind of work that I create because I'm this.
Oh, I
kind
need
of
to do that.
Well, let me give you the link where you can do it, Dave.
Oh,
So
that
hopefully
would be
this,
awesome.
hopefully this still works because she said that it would be open for a while, and she invited everybody to share it with their social media and everybody. So we said, well, we'll share it on the podcast. So
I'll break it.
how to no you well it's funny because there are some that I was just like, boy, I hope Dave isn't this one because
I gotta take it now live.
they're all a cross section of
take
two
it live
traits.
during BOU.
Yeah.
Should take it live for BOU.
They're all a cross section of two traits. So it's like you might be primary passion and secondary innovation or something like that. And Sean and I think one of us was primary innovation, the other was secondary innovation. But if you have both, like if you're passion and passion, then it's like empty calories. You're just like, yay! And there's somewhere if you're sort of like a fact checker on both dimensions, I don't remember what that was, then you're like a resilient to change. So you can't have both. I was like, man, I hope Dave isn't one of those. So anyway, it's howtofascinate.com/you.
I think
And
Dave
when I
was
say
the
you,
donkey
it's
horse.
when I say you, it's YOU. Howtofascinate.com/you. And you need a code to do that because she must charge for it normally. But
Yeah,
the
it's
code
$37, but you could take it for free with the code copyblogger.
the code was copyblogger, one word, copyblogger. And I thought that was really, really cool. And there was a quote that she pulled out that I made a note of that Sean and I both thought was really cool, especially for authors. And she said, different is better than better. The idea being that your differentiator as an artist does not need to be necessarily to be better, but to be most authentically you, to be different. What is it that makes your style different from other people's style? And if you're homogenous and just better, then that isn't good. So I like that a lot. Different is better than better.
Yeah, and I think that I actually really, really agree with that sentiment. And I think that different is better than better. Overall, I think it could be harder to build an audience being different rather than better, and it could take a little bit longer. But man, once you catch fire, I think you really catch fire. Dave's being chuckles over there. What's up, Dave?
I'm just thinking of different. I met this person whose boyfriend was a writer, and she told me about him, and I went and looked him up, and he was about as different as you could possibly be, but he wasn't necessarily better.
So
Well, that's different is better than better.
was he different is worse than better?
It was horrifying. I'll just say that.
Wow, can you share a link?
No, I cannot, will not ever share a link.
I don't mean in the show notes. I just mean like in the chat.
Another time.
All right, guys. Well, I'm going to. Yeah, exactly. Why would he not trust you? To not merit trust. I am going to attempt to call Julia now because and I should explain that. She was.
Don't we have
What?
a spontaneous conversation we have to have before we bring her on?
Oh, well, I was just going to say that whenever I use Skype, it reminds me of how would I ever get a good book cover?
Yeah, I think people wonder that a lot when they're using Skype. How do you get a good book cover?
Because, I mean, I can't use Skype without it. I'm just too distracted.
Well, back in the olden days, they used to sacrifice virgins to the gods in order to deliver a good book cover. And that was really bloody, and everybody stopped being virgins because they didn't want to be sacrificed.
God of book cover.
So what happened is 99 Designs came along, and the end of virgin sacrifices.
On the second day, there was 99 Designs.
Yes, and they have designers that are just
Sound effects when we do our revamp.
they kick ass at what they do. They deliver top-notch quality book covers. A lot of people have emailed us to say thank you for mentioning them. Even though they're sponsoring you, I really didn't know about them and how good they were until I used them, and wow! I mean, a lot of our audience has gotten great book covers from 99 Designs, and they have people just waiting to make a great book cover for you. Process
So,
is
99
easy.
Designs, you just have nothing to lose. Oh,
You
damn
have
it!
absolutely
Sorry, I
nothing.
screwed it up, Dave. I was gonna make a joke there, and I'm sorry. I'm just so ashamed. Can I start again?
Yeah, go ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
start
Nobody's
saying what you
listening.
were gonna say. Go ahead and start saying what you were going to say. You were in the middle of talking about how they were great.
I don't even remember what I was going to say. They're
Go
just
to
awesome.
99 Designs, and then you just have everything to lose. All right, so let's move on.
Yes, you have everything. No, nothing to lose. And if you use a code.
Travesty. Yeah, if you go to 99designs.com/SPP, you'll get the free Power Pack upgrade, which is normally worth about $99. Exactly $99. And with the Power Pack, you will get more designer time and attention, and on average, you will get about 185% of what you would normally get in terms of designers entering your contest, and that's more designs to choose from, equals happy people, equals no virgins have to die.
Right, and that's a good thing.
All right, so
Got it.
well, now I can use Skype. I feel much, much better now, and the reason I'm using Skype to contact Julia is she said she was going to be distracted by the video. I'm just imagining like maybe she's
Looking
like
at
a
me.
squirrel. Can't.
Well,
Just
no,
can't.
it's Dave.
It's
By the
Dave.
way, we've had two Julias on, and Dave has not sung Julia. Does that surprise you at all?
Our next guest is also a Julie. Not our next Dan. Dan doesn't go by Julie, but after Dan, like next week, we have another Julie. So I'm going to call her. It's audio only. We'll just continue. I like the
Song Julia? What song? I don't even know what song you're talking about.
Beatles song, Julia. Do you not know this song?
I don't know the Beatles for anything.
You guys hear the ringing? Hi, Julia.
Oh. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Julia.
Welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
You're on, Dave. She's echoing a little bit, I think, through your speakers. So I was trying to explain before you came on. We have you on audio only because it sounded like you were afraid of being distracted by the video, and we don't want you distracted.
That's right.
We want you focused.
I'm one of those FaceTime people who looks at the corner, so this way I'm totally focused.
Okay, so Julia Coblentz, am I pronouncing your last name right?
It's Coblentz.
See, now that's what I thought, but your voicemail says Coblentz.
Oh, it does?
It
That's
does. It's machine voices, and so I
It's a
blame
machine voice,
the voicemail.
yeah.
So Julia is our
Never
Nook.
trust machines.
Machines lie. That's what they do.
Julia, what is your official title at Nook or Barnes & Noble?
Yeah, I'm the senior marketing manager for Nookpress.
Okay, awesome. And your job description includes, does it include helping authors to sell a ton of books on Nook?
Well, yes, it's marketing, making sure people know about Nookpress, but also helping authors. One of my favorite things to do, which I think we're going to talk a little bit about today, is to talk about how to market books, because that's my background. I actually come from traditional book publishing and was a marketer at a number of different houses.
Maybe that's a good place to start then. So how does that backstory of working with traditional translate to authors trying to sell on Nook?
Well, I think that's a really good question, because with self-publishing, so many things are different. But the thing I would say is something when people ask me, like, what should I be doing, I always just point out that you shouldn't forget the basics. I think people get so excited that all the amazing opportunities there are out there to promote in different ways, especially with social media now. But kind of those stalwart, like, packaging issues of, how do you choose your category? Positioning your book and properly, and having a great cover is incredibly important. Even in digital, people are browsing, as well as making sure that you're really paying attention to things like your product details page.
Actually, an interesting thing came up yesterday. I don't know if you want to go into this now. Well, might as well, because I'll bring it up. But we started using the 3D box images a while ago, and we recently stopped using them for serials, but we were still using them for sort of box sets, and we're doing a Nook exclusive bundle for our series Cursed, and you said we don't want to do the box image. It just doesn't work in our marketing. It doesn't look good. So is that true of the store in general, or is that specifically for merchandising?
That's something that some of our merchandisers have passed along. If you look at whether you're on device or on our free reading apps, or if you're obviously on a web browser, you'll notice that the thumbnail really looks great, and it's a great way to browse and see covers. But when you do those 3Ds, I totally understand the reasons to do them, to show the volume and the value that somebody's getting when they get a box set. But unfortunately, when you put that 3D into the location that you would normally have a flat cover, it becomes very small and actually really hard to see. So obviously, we will merchandise, titles that are box sets that have that 3D look, but it looks better, honestly, when it's flat. So that was my tip to you, but I'm happy to share it elsewhere too. I think it's a good one to have, and it's actually easier in some ways. It is a design challenge to fit all that information onto a flat cover, and especially when it's going to look good as a thumbnail. But making a 3D also poses its own design challenges. So I think that I think I would definitely make that recommendation, that if you are doing a box set, there's some great examples too. You can just look around the site and see people are addressing it in different ways.
And that was a surprise to me, because we backed away from the box sets, like I said, for serials, because we thought that box sets were starting to become synonymous with cheap, and it was confusing. Dave was right. And so, but it never even occurred to me, although I was looking at the Kindle app. Oh, I'm sorry, the Nook app in my on my device, and it showed the little icon of the 3D, because that had gotten in the actual book, and it did just look bad. Like, it looks good on a page sometimes, but I was just like, and for our audiobooks, Podium, our audiobook guys, have been using the 3D cover for the Audible thing, and that seems to make sense. And then you look, well, that doesn't fit either. And I guess maybe we just don't stop and think, does it fit in its native environment, or does it just look weird?
Right. I mean, the other thing to think about, and I'm no designer, I'm just somebody, looking at the site like you are, is when you have a box set and somebody's designed it for you, and they can look great on the page, as you said, and they have the shadow, behind them. You've got the 3D effect happening. But when you put that into the space of a merchandising carousel or something like that, it's more that it's just harder to see, honestly.
So what are your top tips for, because we do hear, one of the reasons we started talking to you, one of our first reasons for our first phone call, is so many authors default to Select, to saying, I'm just going to go Amazon exclusive, and we've always kind of been against that, and we put our stakes in the sand with Invasion, and said, it was actually on the call with you live that we decided, let's not make that exclusive, let's go wide. But I think that happens because so many people are like, well, it's taken me so long to get traction, I can't get traction on other sites like Nook. So what are some of your best tips for what authors can do to actually make that happen?
Well, I mean, you've just talked about the first one, which is if you don't have your book in other locations, if you only have it in one spot, you could be missing out on readers and you wouldn't even know it. So that's what we talked about, the idea of distribution being a really important thing, and it's great to have the ability to talk with authors like you and hear, your perspective on it. And hopefully, I obviously converted you to the idea of getting your books out and wider distribution. The other thing that we talked about as well, which we're working on together, is to know that I think sometimes people, they only link to one retailer, and we try to sweeten the deal to make sure that they're linking to multiple people. We actually offer a very competitive affiliate program, so that's something that I know we've emailed a little bit about, but I think that's also a very encouraging thing because it helps authors. They get an extra percentage when they're on top of their existing royalty from Nookpress when they sign up with the affiliate. So it's a great opportunity to earn a little bit more, and a way for us to also help them, encourage them to have distribution. So those are, I think, are the two kind of key things I would put out there. The other thing I would say is we do have merchandising opportunities that are specifically for independent authors. That's something that you and I have talked about as well. Nookpress titles are featured throughout our category emails we do, and on the site you can go through and see that they're all over in the under $5, under $2.99, are great promotions that they are in. We also offer specific promotions for Nookpress authors and independent authors, like Nook First, which is a program that is really aimed at getting a sort of wider merchandising approach for over 4 weeks. And so that's a placement on the Nook homepage, but also on our devices, as well as in an email. So those are programs we have that already exist and are meant to help surface new content.
Now, what is the Nook First? Is that like exclusive to Nook First, or?
No, nope, non-exclusive. You can write in and let us know when you have a book coming that you want to promote, and we take a look, and it's a great spot for us to highlight the content that's coming in through Nookpress.
Okay.
Julia, without putting you on the spot, do you happen to know, like, how do I find that? Because I'm trying to find the Nook First link and I don't have it up. So people can see so people can see where those placements are.
It's actually on the Nook homepage. You have to scroll down a little bit. That's one spot, but it's over a span of 4 weeks. So we stagger the promotions.
So when we launched Invasion, that was our first merchandised Barnes & Noble book, Nookpress book. And having that Nookpress placement really kind of helped that take off. We also did a post on the Nookpress blog, but I have to guess a lot of it was Nook First. What are the things that the merchandising, like what happens there again? You said, because you were telling me yesterday, you said it's 4 weeks, it's visible where, and then it goes out in an email, and can you sort of detail what?
So it's basically multiple channels scattered over 4 weeks. So the first day would be, it goes on the Nook homepage, and then we also, I think it does about 2 weeks on device. We actually have some of our devices have channels, so if you go into the channels, you can find Nook First titles there. We also include those titles in emails that go out to Nook customers. So it's a nice exposure. And something that you actually brought up that I'm always happy to talk about is we also have the Nookpress blog, which we really have as an open way for independent authors to have a voice here, and then also to cross over and cross-promote some original content on the Nook blog. So those are the Nook blogger. Nook readers, and Nookpress blog is obviously meant more for fellow publishers and authors, but the Nook blog is a great way to reach readers, and so we're always looking for original content that is a good fit for that program.
Do you hear anything from authors in terms of how long it sort of takes to get traction? I imagine that really, really varies, but I know...
I think it varies a lot. I mean, it varies, each person's experience is going to be very different, and I think it also depends what you, where do you start your publishing career. Some people already have, especially if you're a series author, so much of it is when you publish and how frequently you're publishing, and that's a very hot topic for any self-publisher right now. I'm sure that's something that you all talk about. How frequently should you be publishing, and how can you write more to meet the deadlines you've set for yourself, or do you write an entire series and hold it? Do you wait to have a sort of sequenced release to build quick momentum? So there's so many variables, it's hard to say, but those are all things that I think self-publishing authors should be thinking about, because it does have a big impact on finding readers. One of the great things about digital reading is you can, if you like the book and everybody should do this, and you've listed out your other books at the end of your first book, you can just go and buy a book and have it in your hands in seconds, and that's pretty powerful and pretty exciting. So I think that those are factors that all play a huge part in what an author's sales trajectory is going to be.
And so what are you finding as far as how often writers should be writing, and also
I would never tell somebody how frequently they should be writing, because I have the utmost respect for anybody who can finish one book. So
let's say they can churn them out. Should they slow it down?
Pardon?
Well, let's say you can churn out a lot of books. Is there too many? Is there a possibility of flooding the marketplace? And also, considering series, is there like a specific release schedule that works better that you're seeing, like holding it versus not holding it?
I don't know that I could comment on that, because again, it's genre to genre. It's there are definitely people who are trying. You had mentioned serial, and there are definitely people who are succeeding with serial. Putting out shorter amounts of content very quickly. But one thing I would put out there, which is always important, and I think everybody is always thinking about when they're self-publishing, is you don't want to rush to market and not be happy with what you're putting out, and also quality is so important in this whole story. So I think it's hard to say like how quickly somebody should be publishing. That's really up to the individual. What is interesting though is if once you see that first in series type of promotions that happen, people definitely it takes off once that second book comes, and then the third and the fourth. So for people who are doing series, the timing of it, that first book is obviously the first foray, but the second and third and fourth book are really what are helping them reach higher trajectories.
Now here's a question. As far as serials are concerned, we actually signed with the Kindle Serials program with Amazon, and it seems like they basically dropped that. But one of the things I liked about it was that it automatically updated the one book. You only had to buy one book. Is there any chance of Nook doing something like that, where you can release a serial and it's just you buy one title?
That's something that haven't heard of that right now. But the serials that I see people are doing on Nook are more like what you're talking about, with sort of short content that they can release quickly as standalones, and then later group together in a box set. So that's what I'm talking about when I say serials.
Okay. Yeah, we've done that too. Do you find that's working well? Now, for us, it was always problematic. People, didn't want that many books. They waited until the whole set was out because they didn't want to manage all those.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. So they were looking at the whole story.
Yeah. So,
okay.
I mean, that could be changing. It could be genre specific. Maybe serials are taking off better on.
We found that episodes ended up just kind of sitting there, versus people didn't ever seek those out. They went straight to the full season, and even
unless we forced them.
Right.
Unless we said, we're only going to release one a week, and then we'll release the full thing, and then they would do it. But we get emails saying, why not?
Yeah, but even then, a lot of people just waited or gave us angry emails.
Okay. Julia, I know we talked about this a little bit. You can't go direct to Barnes & Noble free, but you can through Drafted Digital, and it's super easy, and that's what we've been doing. Do you have? I mean, this would be guesswork a little bit, but I'm just wondering if some of the same things that we see working really well on other platforms, if they work particularly well, or if you have any thoughts on that, like whether first in series free is something that a lot of people who are doing well are using to good effect. Would that be something you'd recommend?
Well, that's something that's interesting. You're saying that. That's something we're definitely looking at. And you're right, we don't have free right now at Nookpress, and we do have publishers who are using other aggregators to do that. I can only tell you what people tell me, since they're doing their free publishing elsewhere, but it, the report back is that it does do very well, so that's something that's always very interesting to hear. We actually have done some interesting partnerships. So we've done some partnerships that are a great way for readers to discover new writers or discover new books through Nook, where they have the opportunity when they download the Nook free reading apps, so that's for iOS and Android, to select a free book. So that's something that we've been doing, and that's been pretty exciting.
What are some of the? Go ahead.
Oh, we had a couple reader questions on YouTube, or viewer questions. One of them is there a reason why the Nook app isn't available worldwide? And also, does Nook support fixed format for children's books?
That's a good question. So there is actually, the apps are, there is a Windows app. So we do have an international presence in Europe, in the UK. We have devices in the UK. So I hope that answers that question. In terms of fixed format, I actually don't know the answer to that question. We don't have fixed format with Nookpress, so it's something that I'm not that familiar with. Okay.
What are if there's an author who's just really kind of trying to get their footing on Nook, what other advice would you offer them? I mean, you know, if you can get merchandising through Nook first, then great. But what are some of the other things that you would sort of recommend they do that may or may not be different from other stores, but just in general, what seems to be working?
Well, I mean, I think it goes back to that, what we had talked about before. You know, if you're distributing your books, you know, make sure that you have your books available to all readers. So when, you know, sometimes people ask me, well, you know, I don't know how my book's doing, and, you know, I see that they haven't linked to Nook. Like, you should make sure you're letting your readers know that your book is available in all places. I think that's actually one of the most important things. And then I would say too, I think that, and this is something I've seen just, you know, grow like crazy over the last 4 years in self-publishing. But I think you know, just if you're starting out and you're trying to figure out self-publishing in general, I think the places you want to put your effort are where you know you have success. So obviously the writing of the book is the most important thing for the author, but if you are not an artist or you're not a designer, a place to invest is your package. You know, make sure that your cover looks great, make it as professional as possible. I think those are the places that I would say are important across the board. And that's advice I always provide, that, you know, you really have this great opportunity to be in control of your entire book from start to finish. But obviously that can be overwhelming. I mean, people do need to figure out how they want to balance their time. But the places not to skimp on are things like your copy editing, your cover, really making sure you have the best product out there. Something else that I think is always really important for people starting out is to remember that there is a community, and obviously they're tuning into your podcast, so they already know about that. But you know, tap that community for things like box sets and discoverability through box sets and anthologies, and as well as getting blurbs from other authors. I think that's something that I've been seeing more and more, which is great. But letting other people know, especially if you're starting out, that you know, people who like author X's book are going to like your book because author X gave you a blurb, and they make that connection. I think that's one of the big challenges for self-publishing.
One of the things. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Johnny.
Well, this was more of a like a well duh sort of a point. But one of the things that's become increasingly clear to me as we've done more and more stuff with Nook and with other sellers, that other than the big behemoth, which is what everybody defaults to, is, and this should be super obvious, but it just kind of, you know, it takes a few times before you're like, okay, this really makes sense, is that by and large a reader on a platform does seem to be a reader on that platform. So Nook readers do tend to be Nook readers, and Amazon readers do tend to be Amazon readers. And there's many people reading on all these platforms, but so I guess what I'm saying is it's hard work to get those first readers, but once we have people who bought Invasion, that group is probably going to consider buying Contact, which is the second book in the series, on Nook. Like, it's a matter of you kind of have to get them once, but if you do your job as an author and have calls to action in the back of the book, then the Nook reader is going to keep buying on Nook. And if you have, like what you said about making sure that you have links on your site, you're allowing those people who you have maybe on your mailing list, or you have them now orbiting in your sphere because they first discovered you on Nook. They will keep buying on Nook as long as you provide them the opportunity.
Yeah. Do you have any line of sight to that at all, as far as because it does take a long time to establish yourself on any platform, and you know, all three of us really believe that it's worth it, even if it's a short-term loss, to not be exclusive to Amazon. It is an absolutely long-term gain because you're building fans, you know, globally, and that's super important. But do you have any kind of line of sight to say somebody, what the conversion rates are? Is somebody finding a new author and, you know, they fall in love with that author? Do you see a lot of back catalog purchases? Like, let's say it takes a long time to get that first book, but then do you find that a Nook reader will go back and, you know, buy 5 other books that author has already published?
Well, I can't say that it's you know, a Nook reader versus another type of reader, but I will tell you that anecdotally, the authors do report, you know, our Nookpress authors do report back that they do have readers who are very loyal here, and some of their Nook readers are the first ones to ask, where's the next book? But that's anecdotal. Obviously, that's coming from authors who you know, are having some nice self-publishing success. But they do talk about, authors often will tell me that they're backlist. And backlist, you know, that's an old term, right? That's a term that comes from traditional book publishing. So, you know, there are other books, right? They do find sequential sales from their other books, whether or not it's in a series. So that's definitely something, and that's actually a really good point to make, that we talked a lot about earlier about series, but you should really list all your books. You have to make it as easy as possible for your reader to know how to get more from you, more of your books, more of your, if you're in anthologies. I would really recommend including all that information wherever possible.
One of the things that we've been doing, and this is maybe a little more elaboration on just sort of what I was saying before and what Sean and Julie just said now, is with our list segmentation, we're segmenting our list so that we basically, if somebody is if we provide buy links to a book, somebody who clicks the Buy on Nook button is identified in our mailing list as a Nook reader. And so that percentage is actually very, very small now compared to Amazon, because that's just, you know, it's just, we got a lot of Amazon people. And but it's growing, and it's growing in terms of iBooks is growing and Kobo is growing. And so once we have those people, we can market specifically to them. So it's just as a very simple example, I mentioned the Cursed bundle. We're going to offer that exclusively through Nook, and we will be able to email specifically that group of people who we know read on Nook and say, okay, we have this available for you guys. And so I think that's what you need to do. It's hard to get that first group, but once you have them, you kind of have them, as long as you continue to deliver and you keep track of them. You don't let them slip through the cracks.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you're segmenting your list. And you know, I think we've been talking since, what, January? Is that right?
February, I think.
February. So it's actually a relatively short amount of time. It's only a couple months, really. But I think it's really, you've actually brought up a really important point, which I'm sure you've covered in many other podcasts too. But, you know, you're doing a great job as well of staying in touch with your fans and your readers, because you're paying attention to where they read and what they read. And I think that that's a really good point. Very, you know, important thing is sometimes people will, you know, only have one, only have their social media outlet, or I would, you know, I think it's great to have yourself in as many places as possible, but one of the things to do too is make that communication as easy as possible. So I think it's really interesting that you do segment that list, in this case, because we are working together to promote the Cursed box set. So interesting.
I have a question about, I mean, we've talked over and over about, you know, the importance of quality covers. and we're going through our entire catalog to update every single one. But do you think that that's maybe even more important on Nook than it would be, say, on Amazon? Because Amazon does have so many indie authors, so I guess the pool is a little more diluted. Where Nook has a lot more traditional, and a lot more stuff is being merchandised, and so the overall look is just a little more professional. And if your cover, isn't a higher tier cover, it's easier to get buried.
You know what? I wouldn't put it that way, actually. I think that just in general, the reason I bring up covers when people ask me what's important is twofold. One, there is sort of this ongoing conversation about balance that happens in self-publishing. And so I always point out that, there's a reason that there were large publishing houses, and there's a reason that so many people who are successful self-publishers are, have teams around them. They've created their own teams, and that's because while it is easy and you can do it yourself, there are certain places where you might want to look for help, and it's great that it's great that so many people who have found success have realized that and are doing that. But the second reason I actually always bring up covers is because as a self-published author, you have worked so hard on your book. You want it to look as professional as possible. I don't know if I definitely couldn't speak to whether it's on one platform versus the other, but that's just something that I know in terms of the question I get when I'm out talking to self-published authors or authors in general is like, well, if I want to self-publish, what's something that will really help me in my marketing? And I think that that's one of the key things is to have that cover be as polished as possible.
Julie, what's the best way for authors to get in touch and follow up? Do you just want them to what's the call to action for people who want to approach you or whatever is the appropriate way to address that?
Yeah. So we actually, if they have questions, if they want to submit a book for consideration for Nook first, they should send it to nookpress@nook.com.
Nook.
And just put marketing in the headline.
Okay, awesome. And
it's really for merchandising, but you can put marketing. It'll make its way to me. And I think the other thing I would say, and this is something that it comes up occasionally, but having that sort of real sense of what how to position your book and what it is, we just need a couple sentences and just to get an idea of it and to check out if you have other books or to keep an eye on it once you do publish and see if it's a good fit for the Nook First program. It's for first time. I should add that it's for first time in digital, so for titles that are a first time in digital. So
don't send your backlist.
Definitely include good information like the title, when you launched it or when you're going to launch it, a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the book itself. If you want to include a cover, that's great. Those are all sort of the things that you would have on a sell sheet, so it's a good idea to have those in your email.
All right, well, and I'll just add, if you're going to be contacting Nook or anybody else, make sure you do actually provide links to them. That's the same thing we heard from Julia Kent, actually, last week about Apple. Like, why would you approach a seller to promote you if you haven't done anything to promote them? That is kind of ridiculous. So, hearkening back to what you said before. So thank you, Julia, for being on. If you could just hang out through the outro music here, and we'll pick up with you.
Well, actually, you know what? I forgot one thing.
Yes.
If you go to our Facebook page today, so it's Nookpress's Facebook page, Facebook.com/Nookpress, we actually have partnered with Publish to offer a free 2-month trial of their social bubbles, and that's to drive people to Nook.
Oh, fantastic! Fantastic. We should try that.
Yeah, and I'll send you the link too. But it's on the Nookpress Facebook page.
All right. Well, I will then close up the show. So thank you very much.
Okay, great.
Hold on one second.
So much for having me.
Yeah, hang on, Julia. Julia Coblentz from Nookpress. And thanks, everybody, for listening. This has been the Self-Publishing Podcast. I'll just mention as today's call to action that if you had any interest at all in the Stone Table Mastermind, this is the last time I'll bug you about it because we're closing applications as of May 31st. So if you're interested, email Amy at help@sterlingandstone.net. Thanks to Julia for being on today. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.